Alright, so I picked up another Google Pixel 4a, and this one for a very small amount of money, only $10. I'll explain how I acquired it for that amount. We'll talk about this here momentarily, but just, I have another one here. This is the first one that I acquired about a year and a half ago. This is last summer of 2024. This one was from Back Market, excellent condition. I will link that video in the video description if you're wondering about this particular phone. It's still running Android 13, still works fine. Now, since I made that video a year and a half ago, Google has nerfed all of the Pixel 4a's because of a battery issue. So there was a mandatory firmware upgrade that came down on these phones that basically took the battery life from pretty good to pretty terrible. I think in most cases about half the battery life was lost. So in the case of this particular phone, I rooted it and rolled it back to the previous firmware that didn't have the nerfed firmware, and so it's back to normal and works totally fine. And as you can see, it's still in great shape. Don't even have a screen protector on it. Very reflective. I got a little case on here. But let's talk about the new one. Now, interesting story on this one here, and I'll turn it on here in a second, but you can see it's not in very good shape. It's got a lot of scratches all over the screen, especially here in the top right, and there's more, a little harder to see down here in the bottom section. But yeah, they're fine scratches, they're not like deep scratches. So the phone works now, but the reason I got it for so cheap is it didn't work when I picked it up, and I didn't know if it was going to work at the time I purchased it. So it was listed on Facebook Marketplace. I first saw the guy had listed it for like $120 for some reason, and it was listed as 4 parts, basically wouldn't turn on. That's how it was listed, and it was a lot dirtier than this. I cleaned it up. You probably can't tell from the camera, but it was quite dirty. I cleaned it up. It's still got a lot of scratches here on the back. It's a little bit too reflective to really see. It looks like it's clean, but it's actually quite dirty or quite scratched up. But it looks, overall cosmetically, I would say in most places that you would buy a used phone, it would be called fair condition, because this is a phone from 2020, I believe. It's like 5 or 6 years old now. So phones that are that old tend to be in pretty rough shape. But basically, the story is the guy had listed this for a while. I remember I bookmarked this because I was like, this is one of my favorite phones, the 4A, and I'm always looking for used ones to pick up for spare parts because they don't, obviously make this anymore. And that was kind of the original intent, is maybe I'll pick up this for parts. But I thought 120 was way too much for something that didn't turn on. Obviously, if you remember from my previous video on the one that's working, this one was like 140, and it's in perfect condition and works totally fine. So I did kind of set it aside. That was like more than a year ago, and I noticed that he had lowered the price, and I was like, I got a notification I was listed on Facebook Marketplace, and I was like, oh, it's $10 now. I was like, okay, well, let's go check it out. Maybe I'll just pick it up for parts. And so I contacted the guy, and he's like, yeah, I just wanted to get rid of it. He's moving out of the area, so he just wanted to like dump stuff. He was dumping a whole bunch of stuff, like I guess from his apartment that he was moving from. I guess he's going to the other side of the country. And yeah, so I picked it up. I didn't know if it was going to work. When I obviously picked it up, it was dead. It wouldn't turn on, and I took it home. I figured the battery was probably dead. He said it was sitting in a drawer for like a year, and so I plugged it in. And you normally would light up and it'll show that there's a battery charging. Nothing was going on. So I figured, well, maybe it needs time to wake up. So I just basically left it plugged in overnight, and just to see if a longer charge would wake it up. And it turns out that after it had been sitting on the charger for it was not quite 24 hours, probably about 12 hours or so, the battery did charge up. And it did turn on, but it was basically not booting. It would just go into a boot loop. So I figured why this phone ended up in a drawer is because he probably did a firmware update or something, and it bricked the phone. So for those of you that know about unbricking stuff, you can basically go into the recovery mode by holding down I think it's the volume down key on this phone. You hold it down, and then while it's powered off, and then you plug it into your USB port on your PC, and then it'll go into, as it powers up, it'll power up into recovery mode. That's what I did, and basically factory reset it, and it booted into Android 13. And of course, this was the one that had one of the batteries that was on the nerfing list, so it tried to download that firmware upgrade. But I decided to bypass all that, and I have put Android 16 on here. So this is it's called Lineage OS, and it is very nice. It works very fast. It's actually faster than the Android 13 that's on the other one. I'll eventually probably upgrade that one as well, but this is fantastic. And I was able to rescue this phone. It works totally fine. So just go here to About Phone, and you can see here we are on Pixel 4a Android 16, and this is the Lineage OS version that it's on. And you might be wondering, well, it's like one of these third-party OSs, how stable it is, how can it be? And it's actually surprisingly stable. I haven't had any crashes. It's very fast and works really well. So really, the moral of the story, the bottom line of this video is you can find some pretty good deals out there in the marketplace, and either Craigslist or eBay or Facebook Marketplace. You just have to know kind of like what you're willing to pay for something like that, because my limit was like, well, I'm gonna pay like $10 for this, and then if it's no good, maybe I can get a used screen or used main board out of it, or perhaps I could use the case again for something, something like that. I'm not going to pay $100 for something that doesn't turn on to try and figure out if I can rescue or not, because it could have turned out that it was really, really dead and not rescuable. But it turns out a lot of stuff you'll find that are basically bricked is because the user did something during a firmware upgrade. Perhaps it was low in battery. That's usually what happens. The phone is too low in battery, and then the firmware upgrade comes down, and the phone tries to upgrade the firmware, and the battery dies in the middle of the firmware upgrade, and then it gets bricked that way. So then when you try and charge it back up again and turn it on, it just goes into a boot loop and just reboots, and it basically can't get into the phone. So you can find a lot of good deals out there, because there's a ton of brick phones out there that are way overpriced. A lot of people put up their listings on Facebook Marketplace for way too much. Basically, it's listed as a phone that is sold as parts, doesn't turn on. A lot of times they've been dropped, has a cracked screen, stuff like that. I've seen all kinds of stuff out there, and they want almost full price, or even more than what you can buy on eBay or on like Amazon Renewed or Back Market. It's kind of ridiculous. And then it's kind of funny, this guy was wondering why no one was responding to his ad when he was trying to sell it for $120. So yeah, it's kind of funny. People just don't know what the value of things are. But you can still find some good deals out there if you contact them and and talk them into trying and selling it to you for a reasonable amount of money. But anyway, yeah, this is just the first of a few videos I'm going to make for this particular phone I picked up. I did put the Firsty app on here, which is this right here. If you're not familiar with that, this is a free internet service. You just watch a few ads and you get basically free service, but it's kind of slow. I'll talk about that here in a second. You can use it for things like voice calls. Like I have Google Voice on here, for example. It's fine for like audio, like podcasts, stuff like that. Very, very low resolution video. I'll talk about that in the next video. I also have my roamless SIM on here as well. Another free internet service that you can get. So basically, you can pick up a phone for really cheap, basically rescue it with something like Lineage OS, and basically turn it into a free phone. You get free phone service and stuff like that. But I'll talk about that in a future video. But I just wanted to sort of talk about this in terms of like if you're looking for older phones out there, look for things that might be rescuable and things that like won't turn on. Maybe they did a firmware upgrade and it's bricked. There's ways you can get around that. And if you're interested in more videos on how to do that, let me know in the comments. I may try and make some videos on that topic specifically, although the process of unbricking a phone is very phone dependent. So typically it's a little easier to just go on YouTube or Google and search for that particular phone model. And you can see if there are people that have run into a similar problem and what their solution was to unbrick the phone. Because in some cases it may not be possible, and in other cases it might be very, very easy. It just really depends. But, if you're looking to pick up some phones for really good deals, that's kind of one way of doing it, is going out there and figuring out ones that you can rescue. And there are things like lineage always you can put on these older phones that work really well, and you can get a good deal out of it. So just wanted to make that video on this here. I'll have another video later on that Firsty service, and some other ones I'm talking about, like just basically free and low cost ideas to, you don't need hundreds of dollars a month to have phone service. And, there's people out there that are basically tied down to their carrier. They maybe bought the latest iPhone through a carrier deal. They're tied in for like $100 a month for like 3 years or something like that, which is, a lot of money, and there's definitely a lot of ways around that. So I want to sort of make some videos on how to, this being one of the first of many, but the ideas on how to, become a minimalist in terms of not having to spend a ton of money on your tech gear. Anyway, if you like this kind of video, let me know in the comments below. Please give this a video a thumbs up if you liked it, and if you want more content like this, also give me some suggestions down in the comment section below, and I'll try and accommodate those for future videos. That'll do it for this one, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.